welcome the Senior Director and Global Head of Homes and Apartments at Booking.com, Eric Bergaglia, in conversation with Skift Senior Research Analyst, Wouter Geerts.
Hey, Eric. Thanks for
Wouter.
Thanks.
Sure, thanks.
We only have 15 minutes, so let's just dive in. And I mean, I've got to ask you. I mean, it's been mentioned already before. Airbnb's valuation at IPO higher than expected, continuing to climb up to, I think, a few days ago. I mean, I know it's your competition, but in a way, you must be a little bit happy, maybe. I mean, it's showing the potential of short-term rentals, no?
Yeah. I think for the past 5 years in Booking.com, we've seen continuous growth for short-term rentals, and definitely last year with the pandemic, we've seen an acceleration of that growth. So with this and obviously what you just mentioned, I think is another sign of the momentum for alternative accommodations. So definitely, I think it's good for all the professionals in that space and the customers who can enjoy that experience. Yeah,
and you mentioned there, obviously, vacation rentals did very well in 2020. It was mentioned in a previous session. I mentioned it at the beginning of the of the day in my presentation. I mean, tell us a little bit more about what you've seen, especially because Booking.com, of course, has a lot of hotels and other accommodation as well. So in relation to that, what have you seen in terms of how short-term rentals and vacation rentals have performed over the last year?
So I think we mentioned already in our earnings call in Q2 and Q3, we've seen all the newly booked room nights from alternative accommodation grow to 40% of the total room nights. In Q3 it was a bit below that, but still a third of all the newly booked room nights. So definitely we've seen that acceleration and an growing appetite from customers to discover new types of stays with the vacation rentals. So definitely we've seen that. And this is the trend that is we think is still here to stay. So definitely we think that 2021 will be a repeat of 2020, in line with, it's at that point it's stating the obvious that this is going to be another good year for alternative accommodations.
I mean, that's interesting. I'd love to know. Well, first of all, how it must be hard to look forward now, like to what's 2021 going to bring. There's so much uncertainty. So, what sort of timeframes are you working with? Now at Booking.com, can you look forward to summer 2021 or even beyond, or is it very short term at the moment?
No, we try to stay with a long-term view. I think, interestingly enough, all the things that we had planned before the pandemic actually were relevant for all the things that we needed to do to adapt to that growing demand in alternative accommodations. So that was a good sign. And for 2021, I think there are three things. One, 2021, we know that this summer we'll see a stick-shaped demand for alternative accommodations. So we need to be ready for that, and it will be a repeat of last year. So this is continuation of what we've done last year. At the same time, we keep working on what we think will be required in the long term. I think we talk a lot about alternative accommodations, but also we need to keep in mind, and we see that on Booking.com, because we have all the accommodations, hotels, hotel chains, independent hotels, etc., on top of vacation rentals. We also know that while there is a surge in demand for alternative accommodations, there will still be room for hotels in the future, and we need to also balance all this on the platform. Last is the US. I think we've always invested in grow in the US, and we've seen the US being more resilient at times during that crisis. So this is also one of the areas where we keep investing as Booking Holdings overall, and especially with Booking.com.
That's interesting. In our recovery index that I introduced earlier, we see the same, that the US just doesn't seem to people in the US don't seem to realize what's happening. I don't know. Being here in Europe, things are completely dead, and there they just continue to travel. I want to talk a little bit about some of these major trends that you talk about, rather than sort of, okay, what are people booking? There's a lot of talk about things like cleanliness, contactless. Aren't these? Do you feel that these are table stakes? Is that fair to say? It's not going to distinguish you from an Airbnb or a Vrbo if you say that you're clean and you have some sort of cleaning protocol. Is that fair to say?
No, definitely. I think cleanliness was, I think, probably an hygiene or else considerations were not necessarily differentiators in the past, and just must-haves. I think even more now, it's actually a limiting factor. If you don't have like the right supply with the right level of cleanliness, hygiene, etc., probably you're not in you don't have the right supply. And I think that, as you mentioned, it's table stakes for a great experience in travel moving forward. We know that we have research that shows that over 70% of all the travelers will make decisions based on the transparency for what kind of health and safety measures are put in place. So I think that's the kind of stuff that we worked on. I think on Booking.com, for example, there are a couple of things that we've done to try to adapt to that. One of them was, for example, to try to get all the properties, hotels, alternative accommodation, etc., to clarify health and safety measures. So now we have over 65% of our listings who are clear on this, and the adoption keeps coming. We also try to make sure that we have a high bar for cleanliness. So with a minimum cleanliness standard program that we launched at the end of the year, the idea is not only to be able to make sure that there is transparency on the kind of measures that are taken, but also try to enforce that high bar by warning properties that don't have a high enough cleanliness, and also potentially deranking them or even removing them from a platform if they don't comply with what we think is the right standard. So I think, yes, those stakes. Yeah.
Okay. So what is moving forward? What is going to be some of the distinguishing factors? What is going to set you apart, or Booking.com sets Booking.com apart from your competitors moving forward?
So I think overall, Booking.com has all accommodations again. So I think that's one key thing. I think we cater to all the needs of the customer. Like some customers want a hotel chain, some customers want a vacation rental. In some cases, they just want to get away with their family for 2 weeks and work from a certain location, etc., in a clean enough property. So the idea is to, I think we are poised to be able to capture that demand already. I think this is what Booking.com is good at. And I think all the innovations of the past years, especially during the pandemic for the entire places, making sure you can easily find that privacy and space that you need, etc. I think these are the things that we'll be able to do. And additional things like adapting to the work from anywhere trends and all the longer stays is also something that will allow us to help customers find that right trip for them.
I mean, those are two interesting points. I mean, that's the title of this session as well, because something that I think we should talk about. Working from anywhere. It's an interesting trend. Tell me a little bit. It's a big buzzword now. What are you seeing, and why do you believe that this is something that will be a long-term trend that will stay?
So first, I think this pandemic has completely changed the way we work, right? So before, working remotely was not necessarily mainstream. It has become mainstream. It's in some cases it has become the norm. So with that in mind, what we've seen also is a growing number of customers who are actually willing to travel for several weeks and try to just change scenery and travel. So I think from our research, we've seen that 37%, if I remember correctly, the number of travelers have considered going somewhere else to work. And also 40% of travelers are okay to quarantine if they could work remotely. So I think there's definitely a need for this, an appetite from customers to do this. Not only business bookers, but now, and not only the digital nomads, students, but also the people like me, father of two, who may need, when the schools will shut down again, a new scenery.
So it's an interesting distinction you make between like the digital nomads that like I can see they might be there for 2 months, who knows, and at the moment that's probably something. Yes, they are willing to quarantine. In the future, do you feel that vacation rentals will be more acceptable to business travelers as well? I mean, you mentioned it there. Is that something that you feel this pandemic has really put to the fore, that business travelers can also stay in vacation rentals?
Yes, definitely. I think this was a trend already before. We've seen serviced apartments and other kind of alternative accommodations become more and more popular with business travelers. So definitely also with the after that pandemic, we will see an increase in an appetite from business bookers to stay in those properties. The lines are blurring as well between hotels and vacation rentals, even more than before, with now hotel chains also moving into that segment. So definitely, I think that there will be more opportunities for vacation rentals for property managers to welcome business bookers when business is coming back.
Can you give any specific, like, the percentages? I just remember covering Airbnb a few years back, and they were always at 10%, and there was a big hoo-ha when they introduced their business travel, and it was 10% was business travel very quickly, and then it just stayed there. Can you share any? Is there any strong growth in terms of business travel for vacation rentals that you're seeing? Not now.
No, not. No, I think we'll need to wait a bit and see how this travel recovers. I think the most important thing is when it comes back, all properties needs to be ready to welcome this. So, for example, make sure that all the different amenities, facilities, and things that make your property a work-friendly property will be there. So that's the kind of things that we've done last year. Like, for example, having like a badge for work-friendly properties. If you have a laptop and you want to be able to have free Wi-Fi, a proper place to work within the property, and other kind of things that any business booker needs. And now you have like the work-friendly badge on the properties that meet those criteria. So I think that's the way that properties will be able to grow that demand, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, we've got 3 minutes. So long stays, you mentioned that as well. There was a poll about it. People seem to think that this is something that's here to stay as well. I know that you've introduced some new changes. I spoke to my colleague Dennis Shaw, who was on earlier. He said that when he tried to book something long stay, he couldn't find anything on Booking. So why did it take so long for you guys to catch on?
That's a good question. I think it was more a prioritization thing. So funnily enough, first, we had some long stays booking, but people were booking consecutive stays because you weren't able to search for more than 28 days. What we took time, but now I think we are ready. On the tech side, there were things that we wanted to have ready, also in terms of other kind of expenses, because we know that longer stays is not just business bookers. So we just wanted to get ready for that. It was on the roadmap last year. It got accelerated with the pandemic, but we wanted to start with the rate plans. So we have weekly, monthly rate plans. We have introduced a pilot in 14 cities. So if Dennis wasn't able to book yet, it's because it wasn't in one of those 14 cities where we have a pilot running. But good news that Dennis will be able to book a long stay later this year on Booking.com.
And you feel that this is something that will continue to be important?
Yes, yeah. That we've also seen different trends and research that shows that people are now considering this as a new normal. So there would be opportunities for everyone to travel for longer lengths of stay. People like me this summer working from anywhere for 2 weeks and for a couple of other weeks on holidays. So I think this is something that is here to stay. Not necessarily like going to take over all the short stays, but something that is going to still be important for different kind of travels. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Final question. I think we've got like 10 seconds left. I know you came from Amazon. It's a while ago. But you might be insider we have today to Amazon's plans. So will they enter travel properly soon?
Properly. I don't know. I think I don't know, to be honest. I think what they do with Amazon Web Services is their way to be in the travel industry. I think there's been some coverage around that. I don't think they will necessarily try to enter travel anytime soon, but more try to figure out how to partner with travel companies like Booking.com and others. But let's see. As you mentioned, been there for a while. So.
I think a lot of people will hold you to that one when they do actually enter. Thank you very much, Eric. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.